So we're here today to talk to the folks who reside in two complexes here, and we are going to tell them that we have plans to demolish the complexes and to provide them with tenant protection vouchers, which allow them a group of different moving options. One, they can actually move someplace locally if they'd like. Two, they can move any place nationally if they like. Three, we're also going to look at some other housing alternatives in this local community for them. But the bottom line is to fix the two complexes that we're talking about, Elmwood and McBride, it would cost nearly $41 million to repair. These folks, we've had a number of folks that have complained about the rodent infestation, the age of the developments, the fact that there hasn't been money put into the developments in decades. And as a result, they've lived beyond their usable life. We will work with each one of the residents individually to come up with a housing option that works best for them. So if, for example, they want to move to another public housing agency, we will be working with other public housing agencies to see if we can move them immediately from here to there. We'll also look if you want to move them, if they want to move into another house. If they want to rent an apartment in Carbondale or anywhere else in the United States, a tenant protection voucher allows them to do that. We'll also look closer here to home. We know there are some folks, particularly seniors, who may not want to move because they've lived here all their lives, their families have lived here. We empathize with that, and we want to make sure that we have options on the table for everybody as much as we can. Keep in mind, there's no doubt that the housing footprint here will be smaller than it was previously. And that's because right now there are no plans to rebuild those units that are being demolished. So we've looked at these developments. In fact, we've looked at them for nearly a year. We came down today to take a closer look at them. And these facilities have just eroded over the years. And there's enough blame to be shared by everyone. But the bottom line is the upkeep and maintenance has not been there. And you have people living and kids living in deplorable conditions that just can't be tolerated anymore. So I think we've known about it for a couple of years, which is why we sent the team in to actually take a look to see if we can assist the housing authority. And keep in mind, we're taking a holistic view of this. So by us actually demolishing these two complexes, we're trying to retain the viability of the other complexes here that comprise the housing authority. Total to repair this housing authority and to bring it back up to where it needs to be, and that means passing scores for all the complexes. It's a $53 million investment. We don't have the funding to do that. However, with a mix of vouchers and some careful oversight on the maintenance, we may be able to ensure that other folks don't have to live in the squalor that these folks are now. So I think I think they've actually been here and spoken with the residents a week ago. And I think you'll have an opportunity to talk to a number of them tonight. I think, I can't speak for them, but I believe anyone who looks at the conditions that these residents are living in now will come to the same conclusion that we have, that it's totally unacceptable. And while we don't want, if we had a choice, we wouldn't move people. We don't have a choice. We have to offer them other housing alternatives. So when you come in, you don't want to make a snap decision. We've actually had other experts come in and take a look at it. Everyone from architects to consultants to look and see if it's possible to actually bring the property back up to standards. After looking at their reports, we've decided that this is the best way to go, and it is to offer them other housing alternatives. It depends. And here's why. You've got families of various sizes. For example, a family of 2 is not going to cost nearly as much as a family of 4, but it depends on where they're moving to. So we've estimated up to $12,000 per family, up to. Now, a family's not going to get that. They're going to get what's needed to move them successfully from point A to point B. With that, there's also, tonight you'll be able to see our relocation experts that will be here. We'll also have counselors here to assist families to make the decision of where they want to move to. For example, let's take a look at the local environment. See if you have school-age children, let's see what the schools look like there. Let's see what the housing costs are there. Let's take a look at the entire picture. But we estimate anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 per family. So here's what the vouchers would go for. We would be looking to help them with down payment, deposits for utilities, other things like that. We haven't actually looked at furniture in cases where we've had situations like that. We had a similar situation in East Chicago recently, and we would look for other private entities to help us defray some of those other costs. We're primarily looking at the housing angle, the moving angle, the utilities angle, everything to get you into your new dwelling. So I guess that's one way of looking at it. The way we look at it is, one, we can't right all the wrongs of the past, but we can give some of the folks here an opportunity for change. We looked at the entire socioeconomic picture. That's why it took a year to take a look at it and weighed all of the options. But when you really look at it, it's like, would you rather give these 400 people an opportunity to actually improve their lives, get out of what you sat through that evening? Or, we've been asked the question, would you prefer to let them sit here for another 4 or 5 years? Sitting here for another 4 or 5 years does nothing for those children and for those families. No, so when you say overseen, we take the troubled housing authorities and we provide direct oversight. We put, when it's really bad, we'll put receivers there. But HUD actually, there are 3,200 housing authorities nationwide. And this is it's a very, very tough issue. It's hard to tell people that they need to consider moving. I know, I grew up in the projects. My family, the projects that we grew up in, they were actually completely demolished. And fortunately, they were rebuilt only because they had the land, the money, and a thriving town around them. But it was still hard to leave what you knew was home. And for my parents, the decision was extremely, extremely tough. So I know that we're going to have some tears when we go through this tonight, but I think you're also going to have some kids who have new opportunities as a result of this. So I'm not sure, outside of everyday oversight of the expenditures and directing them in a place like Cairo, would you have been able to, I guess, turn this around decades ago? I'm not sure that anyone thought it was a problem decades ago. But the housing authorities, keep in mind, usually fall underneath the city, the auspices of the city. The federal government does not oversee each housing authority until we feel like the federal dollars that we're putting into them are not being spent to really help the residents in the way that they should. So I think, as bad as this is, I think if you look at it from another perspective, it's that the other residents here will get to remain here because we are doing this triage for these units and for this small group of people. But there is an option, there was an option, Wade, where the entire housing authority, and we decided that's not the way we want to go.
If you could back up, where the entire housing authority would
Where the entire housing authority would go underneath another housing authority, or whether the entire housing authority would continue to exist in its current status. So there are other options, but we look at the one that is least harmless and that provides opportunities for the folks that reside here. So yeah, I mean, could you have looked at this decades ago? I'm sure you could, but again, we rely on local. Housing authorities are run locally by the localities and then by the state. And then the federal government comes in because we provide the dollars to it for upkeep and maintenance. That obviously didn't occur in this part of the housing authority, the part that we're dealing with tonight.